How's it looking out there? Are people coming in? A few more stragglers. Hi. Okay. Hello, welcome. Laura. No. We're going to give people a couple of more minutes because people are parking and arriving. So get some cookies and lemonade. It's true. It's true. What did Randall say?
He said it was hard to hear over anybody back in the back.
So we should. Hi.
People couldn't hear you.
Your email about the folks from the Loyal County Mental Health and the Walnut. Okay. If you met me with, I have it. Thank you.
So what else?
You could just be by the door. So, like, basically what I'm saying is this is hard.
There's a general open. Yes. Open? Yes, open.
Is it appropriate if I also participate in the discussion because I'm also an admin resident? Okay. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me at this volume? Loud. Is this good? Oh yeah, you guys are quietening down now. Quietening down. Okay, what do we think? We feel ready? So I think that people will continue to come in, and you're welcome to come in. There's no penalty for being late, other than you have to sit in the front row and be closer to me. So, okay, welcome and thank you for being here this evening. My name is Jessica Savage, and I work for the Vermont Council on Rural Development, or VCRD. VCRD is a neutral convener of community processes in rural communities around the state. We are actively nonpartisan. We are an independent nonprofit, and we are here because you asked us to be. Our job tonight is to be your facilitators, to create the process that is happening tonight, but tonight is all about you. Okay? And tonight is not about me either. I want to take a minute, because we always forget to do this, and introduce our staff. So I'm not alone. I'm here and joined by Laura, Kevin Bailey, Jenna Koloski, and Lauren Brady over there. Later on during our Zoom session, Alyssa Johnson will be facilitating as well. Tonight we're also joined by the Community Resilience Organizations. Oh, you guys are all back there. Hello. They're going to say hi later. Mindy and Jess and Lena and Sister Sankofa are here with us tonight. We also have some folks from UVM. If you want to raise your hands. UVM folks. They are your scribes. So you don't have to worry about taking notes or anything unless you want to. They're going to take them all for us. So thank you so much for doing that. It's such a vital role. I'm also joined by a visiting team. Welcome. Come on in. Take a seat. A visiting team of state and regional resource providers, folks from different agencies of government, different nonprofit organizations, and they are here to listen. They're just going to listen tonight most of the time. So if you want to pull them aside and talk to them, you're welcome to, but they are here to actively listen to you. Okay? Let's see, I covered everybody. I just want to also say for a minute that this event couldn't have happened without a lot of other Johnson residents getting the word out. Hopefully you saw this 6 Ways to Sunday all around town, heard about it on Front Porch Forum, saw the banner, and that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for our dedicated local volunteers. So thank you. And they made all the things that are happening tonight happen, so I just want to thank them as well. So VCRD, like I said, we come when we are invited to a community, right? We were initially invited by town staff applying for our Resilient Communities program, which Laura is going to tell you about later, more in detail. But once we start our work, we work for the entire community. So we're here to work for you. We work for the residents of Johnson, the business owners, people who have an interest and a stake in this community. I'm only putting my phone down because I don't have a watch, and that's my timepiece. So we have conducted similar processes around the state in over 80 communities for the past 35 or so years. And in fact, I brought a really cool artifact. We were here in Johnson 20 years ago. 20 years ago. So I've got an OG, an old version of a community visit report. I'm happy to let folks look through this. Where some of you maybe have even participated. Yeah, right. Some folks are here and participated in that process, right? So we've done similar convenings, like I said, in about 80 communities around the state. So why are we here? 20 years later, we are here again because we heard from you that Johnson needs to think about a long-term recovery plan after last year's flooding. And even 10 days ago, I think we all got a wake-up call reminder here as well. I was talking with folks who were feeling pretty nervous, and definitely Vermont is in a cycle of this kind of reminder that we need to be thinking about long-term how we want to deal with flooding. So that's why we're here tonight. We convened a committee of a representative of different residents from around the town and village, regional stakeholders, et cetera, and we asked them, what does Johnson need at this moment? We heard that residents are still struggling with housing, with food access, with feeling connected to each other and with their community. But to a person, everybody we asked, even if they were expressing some really hard things or despairing things, said, Johnson needs to come together. Johnson needs to talk with one another and think about the future. So first off, I just want to thank everybody who is here. All of you who are here tonight, who come to this part of the evening, to the dinner, to the forums, who engage with this process in some way, because you're helping meet that moment for your community, right? Because we don't know what's best for Johnson. None of us who are here as your visitors know what's best for Johnson. You do. Only you do. And that's what tonight is all about. So the goal for tonight is to bring together all of Johnson residents, organizations, business owners, and partners in an open and inclusive dialogue to develop a self-assessment for resiliency and identify actions for recovery and future events. This three-part process will identify actions and resources and begin efforts for the immediate and long-term future of the town and village. So we're starting that process tonight on July 22nd, and Laura's going to talk about the arc of the process later, but there will be 2 more at least steps in this process where everybody will be invited and included. So I just want to take a moment to maybe ground us a little bit. So I'm not much of a nonfiction reader, but I can only take in so much information that way. I also can't read because I have young children and a full-time job. And so I listen to books. And I listen to books when I'm running or cleaning the house or something. And nonfiction is one genre that is hard for me to listen to that way, but I've been slowly making my way through a book called A Paradise Built in Hell: The Extraordinary Communities That Arise in Disaster. Apologies for using a word that some people don't like. My great-grandmother would be very disappointed in me. But it's by Rebecca Solnit. And the book is really about natural and man-made disasters and the immediate and longer-term aftermath. In this book, Solnit says, horrible in itself, disaster is sometimes a door back into paradise, the realm in which we are who we hope to be, do the work we desire, and are each other's sisters and brothers' keepers. So tonight, while each of you may have a very different personal or professional experience with last year's flooding and the flooding that was almost a repeat 10 days ago, we welcome all of your perspectives, and we invite you to imagine or reimagine Johnson, as the Planning Committee so aptly called this process, a future in which we are who we hope to be. Before I run through our agenda for the evening, I'd love to just pause for a moment and recognize that tonight, while we're talking about challenges, opportunities, doing a resilience assessment, et cetera, things might come up for you. Or maybe you're dealing with big emotions, challenges right now. This can be hard, right? This can be a moment where you might have some big feelings come into the room tonight. Like I say to my kids, big feelings are welcome. That's okay, they're happening. But we do have some folks available tonight if something comes up for you. So first of all, this is all challenge by choice, as we used to say in the high ropes course that I worked at. You don't have to speak up in any of these forums, but you are welcome to. And I hope if we're doing our job tonight, you feel that welcome to speak up, right? You can participate through written surveys. We have them on the table. You can participate online. You can participate in the way that feels right for you. But if during this evening or any of the future nights from now, if something's coming up for you, we want to make sure you have the resources you need. So there are some on the table outside that were provided by Lamoille County Mental Health Services, and we have 2 folks here, Donna and Sherry, who are in the back of the room there, and they are your physical human resources for tonight. So if you need some support or you're curious about getting some mental health support in some way, shape, or form, they're here for that. So you can pull them aside and you can find a quiet space to have a conversation. And they'll be here all night, I think, I hope. Okay, so I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to say we're also here to just focus on our own experiences, right? So everybody might have experienced the flooding very differently. I assume that's the case. It happens in every community, right? It might have been very personal. It might have touched your own household. It might have touched people you love and care about. Or it might have touched your business. It might have touched your livelihood. It definitely touched the entire community in one way, shape, or form. And everybody's experiences, regardless of what they are welcome here tonight. So we ask you, though, to focus on your own experience of flooding, the response, and the recovery so far. so that even when we're talking about challenges, we're framing it in a way that really keeps the conversation productive, if that makes sense to everybody. So our agenda for tonight starts by talking about the post-flooding response and recovery so far, like I said. We're going to talk about what has been challenging or difficult with you. Usually when we do this kind of an activity where we start with the bright spots and assets and challenges. But I think given the gravity of what we're talking about, I think it's okay to start with what's been hard, okay? And then we're going to move on to what has been some bright spots. What have you noticed as an asset or an opportunity since the flooding last year? And then we'll take a big step up onto the balcony for a minute, and we'll talk about points of vision for the future of Johnson. So what does Johnson look like in 10, 20, 30 years? What does the Johnson look like for the next generation? And what are your points of vision that you want to make sure that we start capturing tonight? And then Laura's going to facilitate a conversation about ideas for action. Okay? So that's the before dinner part of the agenda. And I should just say that the overall goal for tonight is really the wide end of the funnel kind of conversation, right? It's brainstorming. All ideas are welcome. We don't need to think, that's a good idea, that's a bad idea, how will we do that? That doesn't matter tonight. This is about really dreaming big, dreaming small, dreaming practical, dreaming impractical. It's okay. All ideas are welcome. Okay, so you'll hear that throughout the evening. Okay? So after we have this big conversation all together, we'll have dinner from 6 to 7. It'll get served next door. It's being catered by Two Sons. Thank you so much. And we'll have music. And everybody's welcome to eat outside tonight, which we can't always say, but the weather's cooperating, so that's nice. You don't have to. You can eat inside if you want. And then we'll do a brief announcement. And then at 7 o'clock, you're invited to stay with us. And we'll move into the forums. I just want to make sure I have the right forums in the right location. And you have the agenda right in front of you here. So from 7 to 8 p.m., we'll have basic needs and services right here in the gym. And we'll have community connections and capacity in the library. From 8 to 9 p.m., we'll have physical infrastructure in the gym. And from in the library, we'll have environment and natural systems. There is also a Zoom option that's happening from 7 to 8 p.m. that's basically brainstorming on all 4 areas, and anyone's welcome to join that way as well. Apparently we're being live streamed right now, which I don't want to think about, okay? I just don't want to think about that thing over there looking at me. So that's the agenda for this evening. And with that, I'm going to hand it to Laura to talk about the next 2 events.
So as just alluded to, this is really the first of a series of convenings. So it's a 3-part process. Tonight is really brainstorming big ideas, all the ideas on the table. And then we're going to come back together September 10th in this space to hear from the CROWS team on the Community Resilience Assessment results, but as well as all of the ideas and the themes that have been pulled forth in today, as well as an online survey, will be presented back to the community, and you'll be able to have a discussion. What are the priorities for the community? And we'll go through a series of prioritization and come up with some of the most needed pieces to move forward with sooner. And then the 3rd part will be in October 9th, and that will be really taking those prioritized actions into planning and strategic, okay, what are the steps needed to take that on? And as Jess said, we're greeted here today with a lot of resource team members from around the county as well as the state who will be helping in that process to identify what are those next steps, what's available to move forward, the priorities that the community holds. So that's the 3-part process. It all falls within the VCRD Climate Economy Initiatives. And this is just an opportunity for an adaptable process to bring forth community voice in how to move forward in a time where there's repeated flooding or other events that are happening within the climate, but in a way that is very economically viable and supportive to those communities that are impacted. So we've adapted this process to bring the Johnson community together and we're excited to be here today with you. And as a part of that adaptation, we are working in tandem with the community resilience organizations, or CROs. If you hear us say that acronym, we'll try not to use acronyms. And the community resilience assessment, they'll speak to it, but is a self-assessment for you all to participate in, plus many more of your community members that aren't here today, in ranking different aspects of the community from vulnerable to most resilient. And so that will be an opportunity to just see where the community is today, as well as see concrete examples of where the community could move to in the future. So with that, I would love to have the Community Resilience Organization team come on up and give a quick introduction to themselves and their process.
Hello. I don't often use the microphone, so am I screaming? Okay, I'm trying to speak like quiet for me. Hi, my name is Jessica Laporte. I identify with she, her pronouns, and I'm one of 3 co-directors of community resilience organizations. Sister Sankofa and Lena, you can raise your hands. Hello, woohoo. We are a small but mighty nonprofit that works across rural Vermont to support and enable community members to make their communities more resilient. We're really dedicated to climate justice in Vermont, and a key element of that is racial justice. I joined Mindy back in 2021, co-leading community resilience organizations, and she's back working with us tonight to help us to bring this community resilience assessment into the VCRD process. CROs is a nonprofit that works with a number of different projects across the state. We are grassroots, we are activists, but what that actually usually looks like are community gardens, herbal medicine being made available for free, community caregivers who know the people who are in need and tap their neighbors to meet that need. And a lot of what we do as a nonprofit is make nonprofits accessible to more people. We do that through a process called fiscal sponsorship. So we work with a leader who maybe has something they've been doing out of their own pocket. Maybe they have a vision for having a free clinic day or something that hasn't yet come to their community. And we work to open up the spigot of the nonprofit funding. That's basically it. And I have the honor of working with these leaders every day. As I look out in this community, I see some folks that I met last year when I stopped by Johnson after the flooding. I see people who are interested in solutions for your community. And CROs is one platform to be involved in that. One key element about community resilience organizations is that we believe in creating a climate refuge that acknowledges that climate change is happening actively like we're experiencing. And we know that as it impacts our state, it impacts those who are already being left behind by our current systems. I'm also here today not just as the Community Resilience Organization's co-director. I was very excited when VCRD invited us to Johnson, because I grew up in Lamoille County, the daughter of a waitress bartender. I'm a Black woman in Vermont. I understand the intersections of marginalization. I understand that it's not as easy for all of us to raise our hand in the room. And I think our organization is all about that. And the Community Resilience Assessment is one tool that we use to really bring out each other's perspective on how our community is doing. So I hope to connect with you all tonight. I'll be stationed in the library, and I'm going to have Mindy introduce the assessment.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? It's hot. Thank you so much for being here. Sometimes it is challenging enough just to get through the day, right? Especially when there are disasters happening. You're here you showed up to think long-term about your community. So you rock. Thank you so much for being here. I have been living in Vermont since 2008. I'm a transplant to Vermont. And most recently, I am actually a transplant to Johnson. I just moved to Johnson at the beginning of this month, which is really exciting. And so this process feels personal. in a really fun way, and I hope to build relationships with you. I have been doing climate justice work for my whole career, and I've been doing community resilience building work for that time too. And as Jess said, I'm the former director of community resilience organizations, and Jess and I developed a co-leadership model a few years ago, which was awesome. And it's really great to be working with this team and with all of you. I am going to tell you a little bit about this community resilience assessment that we keep talking about. And an assessment sounds really boring, right? Sounds kind of boring. You're like, why am I here doing that? It sounds boring. It's actually a really cool tool, and something that we have been developing since Hurricane Irene. The organization, Community Resilience Organizations, was born out of Hurricane Irene, which is proof that beauty can emerge from disaster. And so we have been developing this assessment and revising it, and the Crow's team and I just finished revising this assessment again just a few weeks ago. So you have the freshest version, and it gives images and ideas for what really resilient systems in a community could look like. And spoiler alert, no community actually looks like this. So as you're taking this assessment and you're like, oh, our systems don't look like that. It's okay. It's okay. Very few do in the world. And so this is more of, this assessment shows high resilience and kind of what we can be aiming for, and gives ideas for how to move forward and steps to take potentially, so that we're not just here kind of scratching our heads wondering, what does resilience mean? What do we actually need to do to form more resilient systems? It gives some of those ideas. So as you're taking the assessment, you're going to rate your community on a scale of 1 to 5 based on your gut reaction. This resilience assessment is not about the actual resources that exist in a community, but it's about your perceptions. It's about community members' perceptions of resilience across systems. And so we're gonna, in the after dinner forums, we're gonna cruise through the assessment pretty quickly, and you're gonna mark down scores based on your gut reaction. And it's divided into 4 categories. And so these after dinner sessions will be 4 different categories, 2 happening concurrently from 7 to 8 and from 8 to 9. And those categories are basic human needs and services, environment and natural systems, community connections and capacity, and physical infrastructure. So if you attend both of those sessions from 7 to 8 and 7 to 9, or 7 to 8 and 8 to 9, sorry, then you'll only be completing half of the assessment, which is by design tonight. And you can finish completing the rest of the assessment online, and we'll have a handy little link for you, and there's a, whatever that is called on your agenda. What is it called? QR code. I am not tech savvy. I'm not. So you can use that and complete it online, or you can pick up a paper copy at the library or town clerk's office. And you can complete that before mid-August and return it. So you have the opportunity to complete the whole assessment if you'd like to. I have facilitated the community resilience assessment in communities across Vermont since 2018, different variations of the assessment, and I've seen it be really useful for a few reasons, and that's why we're integrating the assessment into this process and this collaboration with VCRD. Like I said, it's an opportunity for community members to just give their perceptions of resilience. It doesn't mean that you need to know exactly what the resources are, but it kind of gauges what people know about and what resources are accessible to people. And it gives an opportunity for community members to share information with each other, and you'll likely learn something tonight about your community or about a resource in your community that you didn't know existed. And so it's a cool tool for sharing information with each other and just facilitating conversation. It helps people envision steps forward where they're like, oh, I actually really like that idea and I'm interested in that. And so it plants seeds. It helps people feel empowered to take some action. And a strength of this assessment, too, is that it brings out actions that people want to take. And those actions can be led by community members in a really grassroots way. They can be projects taken on by the town, by the select board, or they can be projects taken on by businesses. So, so there's a wide range of different actions and projects and priorities that can come out of this. So it's a cool tool, and I want to acknowledge that this evening is probably going to feel like a whirlwind to you, where you're like, wow, okay, there was a lot said, I received a lot of information. Just kind of sit with it and let it simmer, let it percolate, and then come back in September. In between, talk to some people about their big visions for what they actually want to see in community. And we want to encourage you to think big. As a recent Johnson community member, I was moving all of my earthly belongings into a storage unit a few weeks ago, thinking about the flooding last year, thinking about what all of you went through. And I had the thought, there couldn't possibly be another huge flood this year, right? Did anybody else have a similar thought? Raise your hand if you had a similar thought. No, you are so much smarter than I am. This is the era that we're living in. It's like there could be 3 giant floods per year. And so we have to be thinking bigger about, I know in my household at least we've been talking about what might it be like to relocate a downtown of a rural community in Vermont, or like what might it be like to actually take really big steps forward to accommodate this era that we're living in, and to be part of this era that we're living in and not constantly really scared of this era that we're living in, but feel kind of empowered in that and be more ready. So use this as an opportunity to have conversations with each other, to generate ideas that feel like, okay, that's a step forward that we really need. So thank you all so much for being here. We really want this to be useful and meaningful for you, so make this process what you want it to be.
Thanks. It's me, yeah? Yep. Okay, thanks, Mindy. Thanks, Jess. Okay, we've just talked a lot at you. So now we're going to stop doing that, and we're going to invite you into the conversation. So like I said, when I went through the agenda, what we're going to talk about next are, when you think back to last year, when you think about the flood response, your experience of the flooding and recovery so far, we'd love to start hearing from you about some challenges and some assets that you've noticed. And I think it's okay, if it's all right with everybody, to start with some challenges. So we'll spend about 7 minutes on challenges, and then we'll spend about 7 minutes on bright spots as well. So we have a mic runner. Laura has a mic. Does anybody feel ready to share something that has felt challenging since last summer? Got a hand in the back over there, Laura, do you see it? And one over here. I'll try to keep track of whose hands are raised for Laura.
Great. First thing that pops into my mind is not having a grocery store in town. That has been very challenging.
Yep. Yeah, not having a grocery store. Yep. Over here.
I was going to say grocery store.
Grocery store. Yes. Yep. Up here, Donna.
I guess just environmentally, just to help mitigate with flooding, we need some environmental work.
Yeah. Thanks, Donna. And we really want, it's okay to just be in the what's challenging right now, and we'll get to the ideas for action later, I promise. Yep.
I'm under the impression that this has to be done at a statewide level and a region-wide level, that we can't be solving our problems in Johnson and pushing the water downstream to Jeffersonville. So I'm curious if you have information, or in this process, will there be information about a larger view? And also, I'm curious whether you have prognostications about the likelihood of flooding every year, and is there any future in Johnston? And should we move up the hill where the town once was? Should we take over the college and restart the town there? You talk about big ideas. And, you know, do we know, or do you know, whether it's likely from the state meteorological office that we're going to see this every year?
So I just want to say that I can't answer any of those questions, and I'm not sure anybody really can, but maybe somebody here could. I promise there are people listening right now tonight who have more knowledge than I. That's why we asked them to be part of the visiting team. And more importantly, once we kind of talk about these challenges and opportunities, and you brainstorm your big ideas, at the next meeting you're going to prioritize your big ideas, we are going to have resource team people available for you. We often work with communities where they come up with, they have big questions, they have big challenges, and they have big ideas, and we have to bring to bear the resources that they need in order for them to be able to take those actions. So as part of this process, there will be, if that's something that the community really wants to prioritize, there will be resources available to help think through that. But that's not, those aren't answers that I have. So I'd love to invite folks to think about challenges right now. And I'm seeing several hands, one up here and then two back there.
And I'll hold the mic, so.
Yeah, thanks.
One challenge is that the NOAA hydrograph predictions are not accurate for what actually happens, and I live on a road where I get trapped. So additionally, not having one map that shows all road openings and closures. So, you know, we have a map that shows state road closures, but it's not aligned with a town road, so I don't know where I can go and when I can get home or not. So those are two challenges.
Those are two big challenges. And we do have note takers recording everything that everybody's saying here. Yep.
It was very difficult to see sort of the housing inequities worsen in town. It felt like the folks who were kind of at the lowest point economically were also at the lowest point physically, and so therefore had sort of some of the worst flood damage.
Yeah. Yeah. Up here, Laura?
Just adding on to that, the fact that when we're seeing the FEMA buyouts and the housing disappearing, and the two things, the loss of friendships, the loss of community, but then on top of that, the extra burden of the taxpayers who remain to try to make up that money that the town needs.
Yeah, yeah. Challenge of buyouts. Over there, back in the back. And if you have a question on deck, you can keep your hand raised, and I'll.
So I'm seeing like a lack of generational turnover. It's like all the organizational heads seem to be older, right? And they're almost to the point of like skipping a generation where we're having like 30-year-olds stepping into leadership roles, and the 40 to 50-ish group is almost being missed. And like, who's the next group? Is it gonna, like, where is the next turnover? And we're right at that generational switch, but it's unclear who's gonna take the next leadership role to reimagine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'll say I'm very concerned with what's happening up at the college. It really affects the nature of our town. And if that college, last I heard there was 180 kids on campus. That is not sustainable.
Yeah, yeah, challenge with the college. Any other hands? Great, Laura's going back there and then up here. Mm-hmm.
Mine is that the local emergency response teams make decisions, and these are people who are not trained in reading river gauges, understanding water flow, understanding anything architecturally or structurally, engineering-wise. You really have civilians making decisions that should not be uninformed decisions. So that is my challenge.
Thank you, Beth. saw a hand over here as well, and right here in the front when you get a chance, Laura.
Hi, having been the director of the Adult Daycare Center in Morrisville for years, I'm partial to elders, and I'm just thinking that if there is a critical event that puts people at risk of being able to get out of their homes, that it would be important that maybe there would be a map, a location map, where anybody who deems that they might not be able to function and would need help in a situation like that, that could be put in place.
Yeah, so a challenge is we don't know where some vulnerable people are. Yeah. Up here?
Hi. I think that we could benefit in a general way from having better access to information. For example, when we're looking and trying to think ahead about climate change, we need to know what the forecasts are for the Northeast. And that information is hard to find. And for example, a lot of us are concerned still about COVID, but information about COVID is now hard to find. Nobody's talking about it. We used to get information from our friends, and we find that our friends aren't keeping up with it anymore. I wanted to get information about river flooding in Vermont, and there's a form called something like River Flooding Inquiry Form, and I found it, and then the next day I wanted to go back to that form. I put it in my computer, and I couldn't find it again. So if you had a question about river flooding, there was a place you could go to inquire, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
So I think what a community needs is some kind of way of having access to general information. And I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
But it's really confusing a lot of times.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's challenging to get accurate information, and a bunch of people have brought up similar themes there. So maybe one or two, and I'm going to name. This is going to feel super short tonight, right? We could spend a lot longer on this, and we will. We will spend time getting deeper into the 4 topic areas after dinner. So if you don't get a chance to get your idea out here, just know that after dinner, those forums are going to be places to go deeper into this discussion. And there's an online form and a paper survey, so if something doesn't come up tonight, there's plenty of ways to make sure that your comments are heard. Laura, 1 or 2? We'll do one here and then one over here, and then we'll move into bright spots.
The loss of jobs and how that continues to deepen the poverty cycle.
Yeah, thank you. One more? I'm sorry, you're right here.
Our village sewer treatment plant is in peril.
Yeah, village sewer treatment plant. Okay, I know there's a couple other hands, but we really, just for the sake of time, and maybe you could think about, you can do a twofer, right? You could do a challenge and a bright spot if you want to do 2 together. So I'd love to hear, it's hard to notice everything you're noticing. What have been some opportunities, bright spots, or assets that have become clear to you since last year's flooding here in Johnson? Anybody want to go? Jonna?
I think the college is a great asset, and I just graduated with a class of 500, and I know that a lot of people don't want to actually come here due to the fact that there's no businesses or anywhere for the students to actually go and do stuff at. So I do think that the college was a very good asset to me this past year.
Yeah, thank you. Others? Bright spot?
I'm very impressed with the community and how quickly everybody came together to help each other. There was a lot of pain, and at different levels, and our emergency services, the state services, everybody seemed to work really well together to make sure that folks were taken care of, and that, to me, is the true definition of community. And for us, it makes us really want to invest and get ready for the future and how we can prepare and make it better for Johnson long term.
Thank you. Others? There's a few up here, Laura, too.
I just wanted to echo the fact that our neighbors really care about each other and that we're here for each other. I think a great example of that was last week when we flooded again. There was a lot of people walking around town checking on each other, and I didn't see that during the first flood. It was different circumstances, but I think it definitely brought the community together, and I really need to say we need to do something about our taxes as well.
Up here, we've got 3 hands, I think.
You're going to hold it? I'm really impressed with the rollout of fiber internet in Johnson. I mean, they've been stringing cable, and I think they're doing a marvelous job. They clean up as they go. They're just doing a beautiful job. And I'm looking forward to high-speed hardwire.
Great. Yes, Laura will hang on to the mic, so don't be offended.
So we had some comments about the volunteer fire department, but I just want to say the willingness and the strength of our fire department was pretty outrageously wonderful. That it's wonderful to get alerts from the state and that the people who shared on Front Porch Forum, Beth and some other folks who were just out there letting us know step by step what was going on. Really helpful.
I think for me, the flood, but even the pandemic prior to that, really points out a real opportunity for Johnson to capitalize on some of our assets we already have, like the college and the studio center, but also to really focus in on outdoor recreation, because those assets are really quite resilient. Yeah, the rail trail can get wiped out, but you can fix it pretty quick. It's not like building a new store 10 feet higher. And it seems to me that there's a real possibility there, because we just have beautiful views. We've got a beautiful river. We've got the long trail, the rail trail, the Lamoille River. It just seems like a real opportunity for us to capitalize on. But we have to have the infrastructure to capitalize on the folks that use those facilities.
Thank you. Other bright spots? Yeah, up here?
Yeah, so the bright spot that I thought of was the volunteer effort. When the original floods happened, I know, for example, my group got done with our volunteer cleanup at 10 a.m. and we were scheduled to be there for much longer. So we all came together and we got it done quicker because of it, and it just felt wonderful to help out like that.
Good to hear. Yeah, over here.
There's usually talk about the absence of business in town. I think a bright spot is the purchase of the woolen mill and everything that Jenna's Promise has done.
Great, thank you. Others in the back there?
Similar to that, like the new tea shop and Jenna's Cafe and the library are just great places that you can just like get out of the usual run-in-the-day stuff and just sit for a minute.
Thank you. Over here?
I would like to say thank you to the college for last year's flood. They came to our rescue. They provided bedding and they provided food very early in the morning, and they were there to help. And without them, we would have been in a very rough spot.
Thank you. Maybe 1 or 2 more if folks have any opportunities or bright spots they want to make sure we capture. And if you have a challenge you got to throw in there too, that's fine.
I just wanted to highlight the work of the elected officials as well at the state level, but especially locally with the select board, the village trustees. They worked their hearts out to help this town, and they really set an example, I think, for the state too.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last chance.
I think the resiliency of Jean and Kristen at the library and relocating and bringing the library to the Masonic Temple and keeping some semblance of normalcy for a lot of the youth in the area has definitely been a bright spot.
Oh, one more.
So one of the strongest assets for the town is the college. We ran a business, for several years, and I grew up in Johnson and am returning after 47 years. But anyway, the college is so instrumental, and as well as the other businesses that are surviving and doing quite well. So please don't give up hope, because it's slow, but it will come back.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you for all sharing, who those of you who did, and just know, like I said, it's going to feel short, but this is just the beginning of a ongoing conversation. So with that, I'd love to take just maybe 10 minutes here and talk to you all about brainstorming some points of vision for Johnson. Okay, so this is up a level from like ideas for action, right? Like actions are like, there's a problem with a pothole and we need to fill it, and that's our action, right? This is like the Johnson of the future, right? So your community, what it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like. An example of that might be the Johnson of the future has really safe and calm streets where people can walk, right? That's an example of like a point of vision for the future. So this is an experiment where we're doing this before we get to ideas for action. So hopefully you can join me in that headspace of like starting that process. And I'll just say that we'll take whatever we hear in terms of points of vision here. We'll ask for some more online. And then when we come back to you in a future meeting, we'll have you decide which of these points of vision feel accurate. And we'll keep 10 or 15 of them as part of your final report. It'll look different than the 20-year-old one, I promise. But it will be sort of captured so that you can look back maybe in the next 20 years and see what you thought. So does anybody have a point of vision for the Johnson of the future, 10, 50 years from now? What does Johnson look and feel like? Yeah. Oops, sorry. Microphone. Yeah, thank you.
I feel like startup businesses for helping people to be able to basically create a livelihood for themselves, but also like an incubator kitchen where we can give people the skills for culinary and also to do their own catering, things like that. So creating the opportunity, maybe venture capitalists, bringing that in, and maybe they're not necessarily in a brick and mortar, but they could be in a structure that can travel and work wherever they need to.
Sure. So I think that's a really great idea for action, right? And I'm not picking on you. This is hard. This is hard to get up to that level above that. So, but what does that look and feel like? So when you think of maybe it's like there is a resilient local economy with lots of opportunities for business and meaningful work or something. Like, could you, in your own words, maybe go up a level or think about it, and I can come back to you? Yeah. Sure. Okay, great. Thank you.
Basically a community space that is a collective for people to be able to create their own income, and also it's like a skill share. People can come in and use the space, and it's here for the community, and we can all build together. So,
yes. So, great. We'll take it from there. But I would say it's less about one space. It's less about one thing or a place, and more about what the whole community looks and feels like, right? So, I'm not picking. This is hard. It's hard to do. So, think about it. We'll come back to you. Yes.
Multi-generational care setting for children, for people with disabilities, for seniors, that encompasses not the arts, all sorts of wonderful things, and that it would be maybe affiliated or up at the college so that it will never flood, throw the library nearby, actually, and have the grocery store just, 100 yards from there. Get us out of the water and safe, and bringing everybody into the community, no matter who you are. Oh, and LGBTQ people would be welcome everywhere.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is an intergenerational and supportive and welcoming community. Just to go up that one level out of that physical space. I'm trying. We're going to get there. I promise. We'll get to these points of vision. Yes.
Okay, so I have two thoughts. One is that Johnson can be a place where people can really engage with the natural environment and the outdoors because of our trails and the river and the mountains all around us. That's one thing. And that Johnson is a place for artists and creative people. We have a real foundation with the Studio Center, but a lot of people come to the college or come to the Vermont Studio Center who are artists and writers and stay. So we have an asset of creative people.
Wonderful, wonderful. Back here?
So building on that, a thriving community that becomes a destination for many travelers, whether it's the Vast Trail or the LVRT. We have a couple of motels and a hostel, because our challenge right now is there's no place for people to stay when they come to visit here. So we will become a place they want to visit, and there'll be places for them to enjoy.
Wonderful. Thank you. In the back?
A place where people can afford to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I heard and want to live over here added.
Yeah, a place people can afford and want to live. Is that an okay amendment to your point of vision, Sherry? Okay.
Self-sustaining, feeding itself, powering itself.
Yeah. So the Johnson of the future is self-sustaining. Yep. Others? I see a hand over here in the front, Maura.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I want to stand in line again at a grocery store with 5 college kids in front of me, fooling around, and I'm in a hurry to get out of the store.
I don't know what that point of vision is there, but I love that. That is a visual vision. I love it. That's great. Right. Yep.
Partially building on what Eric said about outdoor activities, and somebody else said it as well. About 20 years ago, maybe, Johnson was listed in a book of the 100 best art towns in America. I think the idea of, instead of asking the college what they can do for Johnson, if Johnson went up the hill and said, look, why don't you redesign the college and make it an art center and use the studio center and use the outdoor recreation, and instead of trying to make a town that supported itself by businesses in town, we brought people in by connecting all the things we already have.
Mm. Yeah, so I hear you kind of did both an idea for action, like there's like a real thing you could do, but a vision in there. I'm almost hearing like, and I've heard this a couple of times maybe, like the Johnson of the future really capitalizes on your art scene, your art, you know, the place that this is a big attractor for the arts, right? And then I think there's a practical idea in there. We're capturing it all. It's okay. It's hard to stay in the points of vision space. Yes?
I would love to see Johnson as a place that draws people from all over to come and study at a fabulous state college and then decide to stay because it is a vibrant, connected, beautiful, artistic community.
Nice. Thank you.
And I would also like to see it be a place where people who were born here and raised here can afford to stay here and build their life here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know you don't want to talk about the physical, but I would love to see not just the art center at the college, but to have a village center at the college and actually have housing around the perimeter of the loop. Different types of housing around the perimeter of the loop to help with the affordability, to help with the access to services and food and all that good stuff that we need, to have power generation all coming from the hill and connecting that to the village entities that we already have. And I would love to see our very low-lying areas be raised so that we have parking.
Yeah, I'm getting the sense the audience really wants to move into the ideas for action, Beth. And I challenge you to say, how does that look and feel? Like, what is the sort of general quality that Johnson has if those things happen? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, to echo what you were just saying, I think a lot of people are anxious to get into the ideas action section because a lot of people here have a pretty clear idea of Johnson, like the vision of Johnson when it was thriving. I feel like I drove in 2 hours today. I don't live in Johnson anymore, but it's the center of the universe. It's where I grew up. There are a lot of people around the room that were very much part of like developing a super strong community that I knew growing up. And I feel like a lot of people here, the vision that they have for Johnson is like, let's bring it back to like what it was maybe a while ago when it was functioning. We need a grocery store. We need a downtown area that like works.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been like that. And I know that reconstruction and getting funding for certain things, it's a challenge. Like, you know, if it's reconstruction funding, that's different than like new funding. I understand that's a challenge from, I saving the challenge to like get a double whammy from before.
Yeah,
but
that's okay.
that's a challenge. Like if
Yeah.
you want to get funding for reconstruction, that's different than new construction. And to be resilient and adaptive to the climate change issue, we need to like reconfigure some things downtown. It needs to look different, and if you just keep going to like the reconstruction funding channel, it doesn't work. You need like another channel, and maybe there are hurdles and challenges, but we got to jump over those hurdles and find a way around them or something.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's the
So,
vision.
yeah, no, and I appreciate that. I think it was like that was like all things together. It was like a point of vision and an action and a challenge all together. So Laura's going to facilitate this next section. So I'm only going to invite people who want to talk about, if you have a point of vision, go for it. Otherwise, we can pivot. Yep.
A place where residents of various different mindsets can get together and have fun together and be creative together and communicate.
Nice, thank you.
I want to live in a Johnson where everybody is just nicer and treats everybody fairly and equitably, and we can enjoy the wisdom of people who've been here for a long time, but not at the exclusion of the wisdom of people who chose to be here more recently. And I want to kind of shake up the power structure so that everybody has an equal voice and there's no bullies.
I would love to see some housing in the downtown still, but innovative, out of the box, whether it's barges or stilts or something that allows people to build in the valley with the water and just engineer it to beat it.
Yeah. All right, so we're moving into ideas for action. Are we ready for that? Or does somebody have a burning point of vision they want to make sure we capture? Okay, seeing none, I'm handing it over to you. I am going to run around the room now.
All right. So this is the time you're all waiting for. I just want to also note that we do have folks taking notes. So if your point's been raised, it's in the notes, and we will go from there. So what ideas for action do you have for Johnson?
I'm going to start here and then I'll go there.
So I'm an MFA student at the college, and I really would love to see closing of the gap between the college and the town, along with a more like robust transportation system, because it can seem very intimidating when you're up there at the top. There's like this huge separation between up there and the town.
Other.
I just graduated from Vermont State University with environmental science, and I do believe that wetlands can be a form of mitigation, as well as house beavers, which are natural dam builders, and that'll actually build a framework for us, Jefferson and Cambridge, to slow the water as it goes, and it also naturally purifies water.
Great. In the middle, and then one back.
Yes, I'd like to answer one of John's questions from a little while ago and talk about something that is going on in Johnson now, and that is a very small committee, probably the world's smallest think tank, consists of two people, Eric Osgood and me. And we have figured that Johnson's problem is really relatively simple. We got too much water at certain times, and we don't know where to put it. And anything that we propose to do here is going to affect people both upstream from us and downstream from us. And so if we're really going to approach this problem, we have to deal with the entire Lamoille River watershed, including tributaries. And Eric and I have been attending LCPC meetings and working with them, trying to work up a map or a design of which towns are involved in our problems and their problems as well, with the idea of coming up with a plan possibly similar to a very small Tennessee Valley program to deal with the whole watershed.
Yeah, I heard an action in there to
That is
continue
in
that
action
work.
now.
Yeah. Jess, there's one in the back.
I'm here representing Vermont State.
the athletic department. I can't speak for the whole school, and I'm definitely not speaking for the sheriff's department. For our youth groups, we've started our camps back this summer with our basketball camps, soccer camps, softball camps, and tennis camps. Next year we will be having performance camps and all types of different camps that will cater to not only to athletes but to all different types of youth in the community. We will also have an after-school program that will be starting up this September that will be ran by role models at the school, in our athletic department, and in the surrounding classrooms. The structure of the school has changed. It's catered more towards nursing, arts, and education. A lot of those programs have been distributed through the other 3 schools in the program. What I believe right now, the arts and education and nursing programs have picked up. Our athletic program, we have definitely filled the roster, are filling rosters. Our basketball team, I can speak for them, have definitely filled our rosters for the men's and women's basketball team. Our soccer teams have also been filled also. So that's, we're talking about a number, a whole lot more than 180 students on campus. I'd say it's about 180 athletes alone.
That's a great update. Are there ideas for action as to how to
ideas for action,
bring
yes.
this
Some of those
together?
ideas for action is getting our student athletes involved in the community, and that is as role models. Working with judiciary, child advocacy groups to develop this role model program where our students, athletes will be working with students in the community, working with DIFAS, child advocacy, working. It'll be very similar to a boys and girls type style programming where our student athletes and other students on the campus will be involved in the community, taking students out for respite or just hanging out on campus. We have been working with community leaders and other folks trying to get other sports, esports. I spoke to someone about, what is it called? Drawing a blank of what it's called, but the robots they put in the sky. Drones. We're drone camp. So we have a bunch of developing programs at Johnson that do cater to the community. I've spoken to a lot of community leaders and have been a part of the community as a whole, and I have seen from, obviously I'm not from Vermont. I've come from Philadelphia and been transplanted from Vegas, Florida, and all different types of places where I've been coaching before, and this is probably one of the closest communities that I've actually lived in. I was in Florida for a hurricane, and I swear there was literally mayhem of people fighting over gas and water, and when I saw barbecues lighting up and people actually walking around the community actually helping people, when I was as an officer we actually used the Vermont state vans to bring people up to the Red Cross. So the sense of community that I have received and the sense of community that I've actually witnessed is unbelievable. So that has inspired me to get the school involved because of my involvement prior, to get the school involved and partner to bring more community work and more of our school into the community.
Thank you. So two here and one over. Keep your hands high too so we can see you all.
Could we possibly dredge the river?
That is an action. All right.
I would suggest that we work on capitalizing on the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail with hostels, camping, bed and breakfasts, food places. I think that we should be mapping our gravel roads for biking, and I really would suggest to our select board that they look at the Cotting Hollow Road, which is absolutely tremendous, and make it traversable by all kind of bikes. It would be a super attraction. And I would suggest that we look at on our places right now where we have a Journey's End, we have parking, but there are lots of other places where people would want to stop and enjoy, but they can't.
Just there's.
Oh, okay.
Just to follow up, so a lot of folks have actually come to us and said, why not actually look at other communities that have dredged the river? And that sounds extreme, but there are actual communities that kind of like, I think Eric Osgood and this gentleman mentioned, will actually have annual support crews go down the entirety of the river. So it's not just one problem. And that actually worked really well in a neighborhood in New York that we know of. Don't know how feasible it is here.
There's two against the wall there.
Two against the wall. Okay.
Something that, for me, as a teenager living in Johnson, is there's not a lot of support or camaraderie within the teens of Johnson. So just some sort of like group or support, or maybe like peer mentorship with the college if we wanted to get college students involved, that would be pretty cool.
I would love to see some sort of a plan, development of a plan for an evacuation for the community, for like similar to places like Florida when they have a hurricane. People who are closest to the river, they're, group A. Further out, they're group B. And then a way in which these folks can get out if they need to. It would just be great to have some sort of an organized plan for evacuations.
Great, and I do want to mention that there is an opportunity to put in your ideas on our website too, the Reimagine Johnson bit.ly page, which you can see at the bottom of the agenda. So if you don't feel like speaking up, there are other ways to get your voice into the conversation.
I think we've been through a lot of deconstruction with the flooding and everything going on. So I would like to see more reconstruction of either hiring like a city planner or putting together a group of people to redesign what a new town could look like. So putting together a plan of our ideal state of where we want things based off of flooding and just general convenience of people's day-to-day life. And some ideas I have in my head is doing that is like putting in maybe a canal system with towns and shops on the ground level and redirecting water into holding places to help us, yeah.
Hi. I wanted to just kind of talk about what I see as two huge assets, and I'm relatively.
It would be ideal for the town and the village to merge in order to prevent having to pay two taxes, village taxes and also town taxes.
Yeah, there's a couple in the back.
There was a person there.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about like accessible information, you go on a drive, you see an accident, people can report on Google Maps or Waze. If there's an equivalent perhaps for floods, if I'm in this location, it could be partially crowdsourced as well as maybe mitigated by people from the state or something. I think also just in general, we're kind of really just relying on Front Porch Forum for so much information, and there's only so much interaction and customization there, and I feel like there needs to be like a Johnson and then like a Lamoille almost program or some sort of community that is, again, sourced by the people who use it.
One in the back. And then we can have time for a couple more.
I'm wondering if the town could work more with management companies like Alliance Property Management or Lamoille Housing Partnership to build more affordable housing. In addition to working with RCT to help out with our public transportation. It's been offered in our town and it hasn't had a huge success rate, but I think we need to keep trying and try different ways because that is one way that people have access to employment and other resources while they're navigating rebuilding from the flood.
Oh, there's one right behind you, Jess.
Sorry.
I really appreciate Tuesday Night Live. I grew up in Virgins, and we didn't have anything like that. So coming here was really cool and surprising to see the community. And I think the greatest resource that we have is the community, the people, and the power that the people hold. So just more things like Tuesday Night Live, more community connection.
There's one in the back, and then these two. Yep.
Yes,
Just a quick question, is Parmelo being represented here tonight? Because they own a big chunk of downtown, and they should be involved.
I think we could really lean into our recreational offerings that's been brought up here, but I think one local business that has been doing a great job the last couple of years of leaning into this is Lamoille Valley Bike Tours, and there's a lot of opportunity for people to occupy a similar space here. And I will also plug the town of Johnson has a revolving loan fund, which anybody who wants to set up such a business and create jobs here could potentially take use of. So,
Right here in the white.
Hi. I'm hoping that the town website can really improve, and that we could have real-time information there. During the floods, both floods, you don't know where to look. Front porch only comes out once or twice a day. Facebook, we got more from the sheriff than we got from the town. We just, I kept going to the town website looking for information, and it's not there. And that could be a real source for real-time information.
Great, so thank you for all those ideas. And like we noted before, there is an opportunity to do a paper form. We have some here tonight, as well as they'll be at the library and the town offices. So you can write down your thoughts, as well as on the website, there is an intake form there that we are collecting action ideas for Johnson. So please continue to think about it, continue to share your ideas. And then on September 10th, when we come back together, all of those ideas are going to be compiled into themes that we're going to bring back and discuss to then prioritize which ones the community sees as the highest priorities. So we are going to pivot to the next part of the evening, which is the dinner, the community dinner. So that is going to be served in the kitchen. But before we go there, we also want to seed your thoughts for the after-dinner forums. So there are going to be 2 concurrent forums happening. You can, again, share your ideas in any of the forums. So go to the one that you're most interested in, but also know that any of your ideas can be welcome in any of them. So the first one is here in the gym space will be the basic needs and services. And this is meeting baseline physical and community needs, such as food access and equity, water, energy, healthcare, housing, safe streets and communities, plus, right? So those are just some of the ideas that are encompassed there. And then the first ones right after dinner in the library are the community connections and capacity. So that's relationships, resources, and structures that promote equity and enable residents to thrive together. Some examples are civic engagement, community involvement in town planning, communication and transparency, support for people in crisis and recovery, community belonging, community preparedness, shared learning opportunities, and the future of the college. So those are from right after dinner from 7 to 8. And then from 8 to 9, here in the gym will be physical infrastructure. So those are roads, bridges, culverts, utilities, transportation, emergency planning, cell service. Again, the future of the college, housing, and public and private facilities and buildings. And in the library, from 8 to 9, would be the environment and natural systems. So this is waterways, ecosystems, health, land use and conservation. So rivers, floodplains, sensitive natural areas, land use and recreation, flood mitigation, agricultural lands, ecosystem, health, and safety. So that should give you an idea. And on your agendas, it tells you again where those forums are being held. So join us back at 7, but for dinner, we're going to serve through here.
Yes, and the best way, yes, you should
dinner.
Do what you need to do to be ready for dinner. You're going to go, the best way to go is out this door and then in that way and make 2 lines, okay? They're the same food in both lines.
Okay, great. And then we have seating outside as well as some in the space. But feel free to go where you need to go to enjoy your dinner with your neighbors and folks from afar. And we will give an announcement at about 6:45 and be right back into forums at 7.
And I just want to say, because you have to make choices about forums, It's okay if you bring up a topic that Laura didn't list there in that forum. Your facilitators are ready for that. So thank you.